Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Iori Folani. Hope you had a great weekend. Well, this morning we're going to be talking about, we're going back to security. It's a perennial subject, as you all know, and it's a long-standing one. It was sort of epitomized a few days ago. That is with the most recent assault, shall we say, and the Arewa Consultative Forum has just called for a total eradication of banditry and terrorism. This is following the abduction of youngsters, school children, schoolgirls from the federal government college, that is the Federal Government College of, where was that? That is Federal University Gusau in Zamfara State. Now, some students have been abducted. This brings to memory the harrowing similar incident, so much so that those now have a global recognition as the Chibok girls. In fact, I'm not sure that every last one of them has been brought back, and there have been so many problems in between then. There has even been something of a Stockholm syndrome, where some of the people are now identifying, indeed, have had children with the bandits, the robbers, the terrorists, whatever you want to call them, that actually took them. Okay, so now we have another situation, and it's a major one. President Tinubu has ordered security agencies to do everything to bring all of those students back safe and sound. Well, we hope that they'll be able to comply, but it is a harrowing subject, and going by experience in the past, one doesn't know how this is going to happen. The security apparatus arguably has changed from back then, but now we have this situation on our hands, and so we're just looking and hoping that the security agencies will indeed be able to come together and do what the president has ordered. That is, get back the female students of the Federal University in Gusau in Zamfara State. Yes, everybody knew about it, but it's the statement was issued, as you know, yesterday by Professor Tukur Muhammadu Baba, and that's the forum's spokesman. And he had noted that it's utterly unacceptable. Now you see some of, well, I'm not too sure what these are different security pictures, but ACF does want the eradication of banditry and terrorism. Is it going to be a perennial event where it happens every now and then? Almost at will. It seems almost as will. And the terrifying thing about this is that it wasn't a 2-3 minute affair. According to news reports, they actually spent quite some time at the scene of the operation, in spite of some military barracks formations not being too far away. So Ada has called in. Let me take Ada. Good morning to you, Ada. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ada calling from Zamfara State.
Yes.
It's really unfortunate that this banditry is still going on. Well, I heard the president is giving a marching order. For me, what is happening has gone beyond marching order. That was exactly what Buhari was doing. Every time an incident happens, there's a marching order. I mean, we should go beyond that. We are still doing the same thing the same way, and you are expecting the same result. It cannot happen. Ban open grades nationwide and adopt ranking. Decentralize the police for effective community policing. This can be achieved by amending whatever is amended to take way for state police. Its advantages outweigh its disadvantages, if you ask me.
Yes, but Ada, you just mentioned grazing as a component, and we don't have that information, do we? We don't have that information that.
Yes, it's part of the problem. Even on the plateau and Benue, all those places, it's part of the insecurity now. Are you going to separate it? All of that is an issue. They're also killing people. You mean you've not heard that? What I mean is violence nationwide. Sometimes have bandits, and the headers are seeing them as enemies, as saboteurs, because it's not done nationwide. If the Tinubu administration is bold enough, a political will to ban it nationwide and adopt 19, at least that insecurity will also stop. Then all the forests should be combed nationwide with the use of air surveillance, ground troops in conjunction with local hunters, and any other establishing security actors in each state. Then they will neutralize all of them. They do it simultaneously. You know what I'm saying? So all this idea of saying safe school initiative, they are getting money for it and all that, it cannot work. No school can be secured in isolation. The schools are located in a community. Once the communities are safe, the students will be safe. That's what I'm trying to say.
Indeed.
All the let's talk about Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much, Ada, for calling in, showing a bit of righteous anger there. And indeed, that's the way a lot of people feel. Maybe it's not really anger. Maybe it's better to say frustration, because one is frustrated that, look, children are in school and they're not safe, and that's a big problem. So really, it's frustrating. The government is doing all that it can, but the big question is whether it is enough, whether government actually has the scope of the problem. And as Ada said, it's not the first time that we've had a president order, immediate action and ordering that all of them be brought back safe. So to many, it will be a cold comfort. And maybe this is as fine a time as any to bring in Dr. Kabir Adama. Dr. Kabir Adama is the managing director of Beacon Consultancy Limited, which, by the way, is an enterprise savannah risk management and intelligence firm in both Nigeria and the Sahel region. Good morning to you, Dr. Adama.
Thank you, Uncle.
Yori,
actually,
please.
Adamu.
Oh, Adamu. I beg your pardon. So thank you very much, Dr. Adama.
And it's a pleasure to part on your show.
Indeed. Thank you very much. It's our pleasure to have your expertise too. But it's a frustrating thing. One wishes that one could have met in happier times. The girls that have been abducted, and the president has given this instruction, Ada has just called in, and to her, it's very, very little by way of comfort, because as she points out correctly, it's not the first time, and a presidential directive in this direction hasn't yielded all that much fruit in the past. Give me your comments on this, because one begins to wonder, so what else can the government do? The president is commander-in-chief, but we've also heard that these incidents, we have to look at them carefully and perhaps differently, in the sense that it's not a war with external factors. Give me your impression, Dr. Adam.
Thank you very much once again for this opportunity. And undoubtedly, this is something that concerns every Nigerian at the center of our existence as a nation, and our aspiration to develop is education. So anything that challenges education, honestly, is an existential challenge to us. And it's understandable that a lot of people are angered, they are concerned, frustrated. I mean, you can use so many adjectives and verbs to describe what the kind of reactions that have occurred since this incident was reported. And it is also understandable that several people have reminded us that we've gone down this path where incidents like this will occur. The commander-in-chief would issue directives, and sadly, either those directives will not be met, or even where they are met, they would not, ensure that those type of incidents don't occur again. Now, why is this the case? There are two major areas that we need to look into as a country, and all of them revolve around the concept of accountability, security sector accountability. On the one hand, there is operational accountability, and then on the other hand, you have financial accountability. Now, all of these are concepts in security, national security, that require a lot of time to discuss, but I'll quickly, as much as possible, try to simplify them in such a way that our listeners will understand what I mean. The essence of security is tied to subsection 14, subsection 2 of our Constitution, which mentions the welfare and protection of the average Nigerian. So everything the security sector does is contributing to that particular element within section 14, subsection 2. Now, sadly, over time, for a lot of reasons, that ability to monitor the contribution of the various elements of our security sector to this particular provision within the Constitution has either dwindled or has been made ineffective. And one of them is the legacy of military rule, where pronouncements are made and there is no accountability around those pronouncements. Is what if the military government decides to fulfill it, they fulfill it. If they don't fulfill it, nobody can come and hold them to account to say you've not fulfilled it. The second point is corruption, both financial corruption and sadly administrative corruption, where for some reasons, even where instructions are given, the person, for one reason or the other, it may be lack of capacity, it may be issues around meritocracy and all of that, would be unable to fulfill the actual mandate that he or she, or the directive or instruction that he has been given. Now, the third element is the inability of the coordinating body or the supervisory body to now take action against that individual who has been unable to carry out that responsibility. Now, I may be speaking high level, but I'll try to break it down to relate it to what happened in Zamfara.
Okay, but before you continue, Dr. Adamo, before you continue, when you say it might also be as a result of the absence of a coordinating authority, isn't that what the NSA's a job essentially is?
So when the coordinating elements within our national security sector are relatively about 4 of them. The one that most people know is, like you rightly indicated, the Office of the National Security Advisor. But to be fair to that office, it's an advisory office. It's not an operational office. I know there are things here and there. The immediate past occupant of that office attempted to operationalize the office, and there was a lot of conversation within experts on whether that is the right thing to do or not.
Okay.
But statutorily, that office is an advisory office.
Okay.
So yes, it has coordinating elements. The other elements that have operational capability and that are coordinating elements within the security sector are the Ministers of Defense, Minister of Interior, Minister of Police Affairs, and then the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. In certain instances, again, I want to emphasize this, in certain instances, which is also debatable, the Chief of Staff to the President also has that power, which he derives from the President. So when we're speaking coordination, these are the 5 principal areas that have that responsibility for coordination. And like we always say, where there are too many captains in one ship, then the result is what we're seeing at the moment.
Because I was going to ask if it is easily possible for all of those coordinating authorities to actually be on this. It would be desirable to be on the same page, but whether operationally that is possible, I don't want to take away from what you're saying, but you're just explaining, I think, the complexity of these kind of matters, especially in the eyes and ears of the ordinary citizen who might not necessarily be a professional. He just knows that we have these instruments that are supposed to uphold orderliness, law and order, but you seem to be explaining to us some of the complexities and challenges that can arrive therefrom. Thank you. Please continue, sir.
Excellent. So within that, these complexities, the philosophy behind the constitutional requirements also made provision for governing bodies within the security sector. So as an example, you have the National Security Council, you have the National Defense Council, you have the National Police Council, and in the case of Nigeria, which is an anomaly, I'm not sure how it happened, but the National Economic Council too has in the past also taken decisions on security matters in this country. So to answer your last question on both the complexities and how to, as it were, defeat those complexities, it would be to ensure that the national security councils, those governing bodies, are strengthened and they are held, periodically like they should be held. At the moment, in my honest opinion, I have seen enough reason for the convening of at least the National Security Council. Within the last few days, certain occurrences have occurred that ordinarily that governing council should have been convened. A good example is the attack on our military forces in Niger State that led to the death of over 20 of them. We all saw on national TV during the burial. I don't know how many of us did not shed tears with the pictures that we saw. More recently, there was the dastardly, and I can't even find the right adjective to describe what happened in Rivers State when a DPO was decapitated and it was put on video and uploaded on social media. And then last week, it was in Imo State when our security forces from different organizations were ambushed. It was also videoed and put. All of these incidents deserve that type of attention. Now, why do they deserve this type of attention? There are issues that are existential threats. When non-state actors attack or challenge the supremacy of the use of force by the state, they are making a bold statement, and we need to dent their confidence. The best way we can dent their confidence is to harness our national powers. And none of the structures that I've mentioned previously has that capacity. It is the National Security Council that has that capacity to harness that national power, go after the perpetrators. Some of them have political affiliations, those elements, and I'm very conscious of what I'm saying. I know I'm on national TV, so every statement I make here, I'm very conscious, and I'm also careful, with the implication of some of the statements. That governing body can harness both our kinetic and non-kinetic elements of the national power, and then we go after the perpetrators, identify them, and then use the instruments of the state to either arrest them or take actions that would ensure those incidents don't repeat themselves. Now, that is how we came to what happened in Zamfara State. I was trying to make the point that the university in the first place is under a particular ministry, which is the Ministry of Education. Now, that Ministry of Education in 2020,
Okay, we're sorry the sound dropped there. We will get it back very shortly. But this is intriguing, what we are being told by Dr. Kabir Adamu, an expert. Because I made the point earlier to him when the sound was still good that the sequences that he's explaining, a lot of us would have thought that exactly is what the president has done now. He has directed, he has given the command, both as the president and the commander-in-chief, that you go after the, I don't know what they are at the moment, kidnappers. Go after the bandits. And but Dr. Adamu seems to be explaining, yep, he's aware the president has so directed, so commanded. But Dr. Adamu was explaining how there are all these challenges, and that's what perhaps when he comes back on, he'll explain to us, why would the commander-in-chief, why would you throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at a problem that the commander-in-chief has actually ordered? But we have on the line, good morning, who do we have on the line? Mr. Aminu. Aminu, good morning, sir.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Errol.
Thank you very much for calling in.
I want to respond to what Ada from Jos has said.
Yes.
Because she always tags a threat that we belong, the cattle headers, as terrorists. So next time, if she tags us, I'm a cattle header, a business cattle header, we are not terrorists, we are not bandits, we are businessmen. She should be very mindful of what she is saying, because we have no other option but to take her to court to prove to us that we are criminals. This is on one side. The other side is The entire case in Zamfara is more of a mining of solid minerals. They are not, we all know the issues. So we all, the government of Zamfara State and the national government have to do something deliberate on those that are getting riches out of those places. It's very simple. Cordon the area, fish out the people, cordon the area, manage it for 6 months, declare state of emergency in that place. We will all be safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for calling in, Aminu. And as you say rightly, there are law-abiding cattle herders too, cattle rearers, and as you say, there are they are businessmen. I think MACBAN is the organization that ties them all together. Indeed, the point that you made has been said. Although you can understand where the impression, even if you deem it to be wrong, it might well be where it had come from, because they had always been mentioning cattle herders, but that is absolutely no reason for one to assume that any disturbance where there happens to be cattle rearing would automatically be the fault of those cattle rearers. I think that point has been made. And I'm happy to say that Dr. Adamu is now back online, and you heard the comment that came in from Adamu, a cattle rearer who is a law-abiding one, and there are many others. And you know, there is very sketchy information about this attack, But you were explaining, and in the meantime, Adamu has called in with a suggestion. He's probably, you know, gone a few steps beyond where you were taking us sequentially through it. But he has said that what is the problem? That, you know, that seems to be what Mr. Aminu was saying. What is the problem? Gold mining has brought in all sorts of ne'er-do-wells to that place. Cordon it off, and on the level of the ordinary citizen, by the time it is seen that there is a zero tolerance for anything untoward here, at least you're the expert, but Aminu did explain that it's not really rocket science. What would you say to that?
Okay, I don't want to fall victim of what I think is a challenge. That is the inability to disaggregate the security issues themselves. It's honestly, professionally speaking, it's wrong to simplify the case and just use one single stroke of paint to say this is the issue. There are multitude of issues that are allowing the security situation in Zamfara and other parts of the country to be where they are at the moment. While I agree that the issue of non-state actors, including bandits and the other criminal gangs, are contributing to the security challenge in Zamfara and the Northwest, to, for instance, isolate it to mining is not correct. It's bigger than that.
Okay.
Mining is a contributing element. But to go back to my earlier point around the incident that happened in the university in Gusau, I was making the point that that university is being supervised by the Ministry of Education, as an example. And that ministry came out with a policy in 2021 around safe schools. It was a development that started with the Safe School Initiative to the Safe School Declaration that now culminated into that policy. And that policy is a beautiful document. In fact, anyone around the world agrees that that is the best way to go. In simple terms, that policy is meant to protect the school environment. There are about 6 elements to 7 elements in every good and effective security arrangement, starting from elements around detecting the threat, to denying the threat the ability to come to the school environment, to delaying it, to responding, to recovering, and several other components. That policy provides for it. And the beauty of the policy is that it divides the school environment into components. The external environment, the internal environment, and within the internal environment, you have the academic staff, you have the students or the pupils, as the case may be, you have the non-academic staff, you have contractors, you have the Parent-Teachers Association. Each and every one of these have roles to play within that policy. Point I'm trying to make is we have a beautiful policy that is yet to be implemented. So when the president issues a directive like the one he issued yesterday, there is a background And in my honest opinion, we need to have corrected that background to ensure that there is no
because I was going to ask, sorry to interrupt you, I was going to ask Dr. Adamu if with the sketchy information such as it is that we have available to us, are you able to sort of professionally isolate which aspect of the beautiful policy that you've just spoken about, which aspect of it failed? You said there's an internal, there's an external. Which aspect of it failed?
So almost all the aspects failed in the case, at least the little I know. Like you rightly said, a lot of information is not yet available, but I know that school very well. I can tell you that school, if I'm going to rate the physical security arrangement in that school, let's say from 10 to 0, where 10 is good and 0 is bad, I would probably give it 2. It is located in an environment that is easily accessible by the non-state armed groups who are behind the abduction. The perimeter fencing is extremely very bad. From the pictures that we saw, accessing the hostels where the students were domiciled was very easy. There was no physical security measures. A good security arrangement should have at least 4 elements. From the time the threat element leaves his or her location to come and carry the attack, they should have detected the threat element.
Indeed.
Now, under the policy, the students would have been trained on what to do if there is an impending attack. Till now, almost 48 hours after the incident, a number has not been provided
Indeed.
of the persons who have been abducted, which tells me that there was no database or system in place to account for. These are elements.
Excuse my interrupting you. Okay, welcome back. And this Monday morning, unfortunately, we're looking at the Nigerian insecurity situation. Arewa Consultative Forum has just called for the eradication of this very plight. And our guest is Dr. Kabir Adamu, who is a security expert, and he's just been explaining to us how there are a number of, in fact, there was a failure of policy, and several aspects that he was enumerating to us. Some of it had failed, and he'd also cautioned that we need to be careful because 1 or 2 callers have, actually joined the program earlier. It's not, he thinks it's an oversimplification to talk about the mining situation in Zamfara and all that has brought along. He also, said the same thing in terms of a guest that had called in, I think our first caller, who had spoken about, sorting out the cattle herders. In fact, it's not just he himself that said that. Another caller had, said that the herders are legitimate businessmen, and so they feel scapegoated if every time you bring them into the conversation. So, Dr. Adamu, thank you indeed for continuing with us. And let me also thank Chidi in Kafanchan, who has been waiting to join us. Good morning to you, Mr. Chidi.
Good morning, Uncle.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead now, please.
How is the weekend?
Very well, thank you.
Yes, my take over the topic on discussion. First and foremost, I wish to sympathize with the government and people of Zamfara State and several other states where the insecure situation is really having dangerous impact. As a matter of fact, it is regrettable that at this point in time, our country is being bedeviled with different dimensions of insecure situations. I would like to therefore call on the President Tinubu-led administration to pay a very important attention to security. Because in a situation where we want foreign investors, just like the good speech he made at the UNGA Assembly, which will attract, where we look to attracting investors from outside Nigeria. If Nigeria will be considered an insecure place, in other words, we are by ourselves chasing away potential investors. So I want this government to look critically, use kinetic and non-kinetic approach in order to bring this insecurity situation to a manageable extent. Thank you very much, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chidi. calling in from Kafanchan there. Back to you, Dr. Adamu. It's frustrating, and you were sort of explaining how we come to be where we are now. What I mean by it's frustrating is that non-state actors seem to, at will, be able to get up and show us that there are no pushovers. And this is a problem. I would have thought that that should be at the very, very top of whatever the policy was, that people can't just get up and thumb their nose at all the state machinery, state power, and all of that. So that's where we are now, Dr. Adamu. You were explaining that you were sort of itemizing aspects. You said all, as far as you're concerned, almost all of the aspects of our policy, policy against banditry, all of it would have seemed to have failed.
Yes, thank you. Even though I was being specific regarding the implementation of the safe schools
yes,
policy,
especially as it relates to that school, yes, and it being under the Ministry of Education.
Exactly. So, but we have to also be very specific. That's why I started by laying the background. Now, even though the custodian ministry is Ministry of Education, it does not have a single troop at its disposal, which means it has to depend on the security ministries, departments, and agencies to fulfill the mandate or the aspirations as specified in that policy. And that brings us to the area of collaboration, coordination, and cooperation. And Mr. President has repeated that. In fact, it was one of the first things he reiterated. If I remember his inaugural meeting with the security chiefs, he emphasized this point around collaboration. So we're going back to my earlier statement around the security structure and security sector governance, where presidential directives, such as the need for collaboration, will have to be itemized and implemented with the mindset of governance. It's not just in, for instance, budgetary areas that you approach them with that governance. In security, too, we need to approach it with governance. So when there is a policy in place that requires collaboration and cooperation, how are ensuring that that collaboration and cooperation is achieved? Number one, the role of the security governance structure, the National Security Council that I talked about, the role of the coordinating elements within the national security sector. Do we have a mechanism in place at the moment that is able to pick that policy and say we're at 25% implementation or 15% implementation?
Do you think we have any such mechanism, Doctor?
It's being brought up at the moment, and there is a unit in the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation called the CDCU, the Central Delivery Coordinating Unit. This is one of the legacies of the Buhari administration that we need to applaud that government for. Through the passage of Executive Order 13, they were able to entrench that process within our governance structures. So the CDCU will hopefully, in the coming days, reach a stage where a performance bond will be signed between the president and the ministers for the achievement of his priority areas, which include security. I don't think it would be fair just to speak on the point made by the caller from Kafanchan. The president has prioritized security. I doubt if there is any sector that he has prioritized beyond security, maybe the economy, which, I mean, the two Siamese twins, they go hand in hand. The first meetings he held was on security. He also held meetings around economy, but then he came back to security, and they've been going hand in hand. I also to use this opportunity to remind us of the presidential agenda of security. If you pick the Renewed Hope document, which is publicly available, and I'm sad, Uncle Yori, I'm very emphatic around this point. I'm sad that not enough effort is being done by the communications arm of the government to make these points known to the people. I have picked that document, and I agree, as a professional who has almost 30 years experience in this security sector in Nigeria, I am very happy with the aspirations mentioned in that document, and I'll quickly read them out, 7 of them.
Okay.
Number one, the president wants to bolster our security forces. In other words, look at their numbers, look at their capacity, and look at their capability. Number 2, he wants to redefine military doctrine and practice, to make military doctrine and practices consistent with our requirements of the modern day security aspirations in Nigeria. Very noble. Number 3, he wants to secure critical national infrastructure. That is one of the things that is affecting this country. We have an OPEC quota that we've not been able to meet because we've not been able to secure our critical national infrastructure.
Oh dear, I think the audio seems to be coming in and out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're back. Yes, maybe you could just finish what you were saying because I have a call on the line.
The fourth point is peaceful communities, secure borders, and safe forest. Now that last point, safe forest, I cannot overemphasize it. The reason why the Zamfara abduction happened is because there was an unsafe forest where bandits were able to hide, come out and abduct our students and go back into that forest. So the president wants to secure those forests. Number 5, he wants to have an integrated identity database. And he has already started that process by moving NIMSI to Ministry of Interior. So we're hoping that in the coming days, we'll see a harmonization of the existing database. A very good and noble aspiration. Number 6, international collaboration. And he's already doing that. He's gone to Pakistan, or rather India. He's also gone to Dubai. He has entered agreements for supporting, in one instance, 40% for local production of our weaponry requirement. And then the last one is to reposition the police, to make the police take up its role in internal policing documents. So I doubt if any Nigerian would contest the at these 7 aspirations. The meat of the matter is in the implementation. How are these 7 aspirations going to be implemented? And
okay, Doctor. Doctor, I beg your pardon. Thank you very much for giving us that brief itemization. But Mr. George in Ikeja has called in. Good morning to you, Mr. George. Please go ahead now.
Yes, thank you, Uncle Yori. Good morning and good morning to the guests.
Yes.
Uncle Yori, I think this issue of banditry has gone beyond the herdsmen level. Herdsmen cannot be the type that will set up camps and have arms that can bring down a place. Those ones cannot be herdsmen. This banditry thing, it's interesting that the ACF, I guess you mean Arewa Consultative Forum, are also concerned about the banditry going on. But we need their help too. The government needs their help because we know that there were instances where some traditional rulers were giving titles to some of these bandit leaders. That tells me that some of them know the bandits and their leaders, and they know those who are, those bandits living in their communities. They should also take it upon themselves to help the government with intelligence on how to get rid of this menace. I agree with Chidi from Kafanchan that if we do not address this matter decisively, we are asking for investors to come in. On the other hand, if we are not able to address this, constructively, we would have been indirectly, discouraging the investors. Nobody wants to invest in a country that is not safe. That's what I'm saying. The military needs to step up their game. We are seeing some of the results they are bringing, but they need to do more and strategize the more. That's the way I see it.
All right,
Thank you.
then. Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. George. And Dr. Kabir Adam, let me bring in the other aspect. I mean, thank you very much so far. The human angle, if you want, to all of these. I mean, those children, those are daughters, sisters, of people. And you had said one of the sort of the weaknesses of the situation, as you saw it, was that the location of the school itself was, the proximity. It was easy, relatively easy. Now, what is the part that parents themselves can actually, contribute to this whole process? Because you can imagine a situation where parents will begin to, look at the situation, look at where a school is situated, and it doesn't matter what you say, we refuse to send their children to that place if it is not right next door to a barracks or that kind of a thing. I mean, yes, I'm overstating it slightly, but surely you can get because you just itemized that, well, unfortunately, the situation where that school is situated didn't help matters.
So, I mentioned earlier on that there is a rule for the Parent Teachers Association under the National Policy on Safe Schools. I can't recall the exact name of that policy, but it's something around Safe and Secure Schools 2021. There is a rule for Parent Teachers Association in that policy. But in practical terms, what can parents do? Number one, have access to that document. It's a publicly available document. And ask yourself, the school where you are taking your kids to, have they implemented, what level of implementation of that policy have they done? In fact,
okay, so it's gone again, but it'll be back. But where you got to gives us a bit to be able to talk about. Parents themselves have the responsibility to access that document and decide, it seems to be the conclusion that they can get from perusing that document, whether or not it is safe to send their children or wards to such schools.
Yes, exactly. That's the number one step. To conclude, answer the question whether the school is safe. In the case of the university in Zamfara, even to a casual observer, if you've been to that school, you know that it is vulnerable. For the simple reason that it's located outside the city center on a road close to a forested area where over the period there have been incidents of abduction, both within the community and then around the community. So it was just a matter of time. In terms of security deployment within the school, even though that's difficult to determine, most parents cannot do that. But just engaging, for instance, the police or the military to ask them if they have enough personnel in that location will answer the question. And I can tell you from my vantage point that the case was there was not enough deployment. Professionally speaking, if you are protecting one individual from, let's say, someone who is holding one AK-47, the professional requirement is that there should be at least 4 to 8 persons to protect that one individual. So it's not that easy, Uncle Yuri. You have a threat element that has something more sophisticated than an AK-47. So the best thing, and I want to emphasize this word, the best thing is not to wait for that threat element to attack. Okay. Go after the threat element and uproot that threat element from his or her base so that that threat element is, in military terms, neutralized.
And well, exactly. Now that you said it, it sort of will occur to everybody. It's not cheap and it's not easy to do, as you've just explained, that if there's only one AK-47 wielding, deviant, the amount of security needed to sort of be able to contain that situation, it goes to show us. And we've heard that, funds are not limitless, and what is available is so little that it spreads so thin. So it then becomes almost like a game of chess, where the authorities have to determine where should I, concentrate on now, just as you're trying to outwit them and trying to second guess them as to where they might think is vulnerable and where they might strike. So it all is a very, very complex situation. Yet Nigeria cannot shut down. Nigeria cannot shut down because people have mentioned the whole world is watching this as well. They're looking at the invitation of the president to come into Nigeria. We're ready. We're not lazy and all of that. But they're also going to be asking, are you safe as well? Never mind the economy. Are you safe? Reverend Dominic, please join in the conversation. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Chief Yori.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to erudite
Dr. Adamu,
Professor, the security expert. He has spoken well. But Yori, do you know my pain? My pain is the way Mr. President has carried the office of presidency to sell Nigeria in the international community. Well said, well positioned. But inside Nigeria, Yori, there's a sabotage here. Let me give you one. Let me start from my own side, Southeast. Do you know, it is now we know, it was not Hausa herdsmen that was doing the kidnapping. It was our brothers. Let me put it this way. This makes me a dangerous piece. It was our brothers who, in quotes, fighting for freedom, will go and kidnap, and they say it is a herdsman. I've been saying this always. We must look inside. I've read the document your guests have read about security, the way these wonderful presidents have lined it up. But that document will not see the light of the day. If we don't come down to ourselves to tell ourselves the truth, how do we stop this security in our own communities? There's a young man that threatened everybody in the Southeast, and he made the threat last week and carried it out by killing some soldiers and displayed their guns on Facebook. What is the meaning of need? That nobody will make a call in Nigeria again without me trusting him. This young man made the threat last week, carried it out, showed the guns of this young man he killed, and celebrated it on Facebook. What was the sin of Mr. President, last President, Buhari, that Twitter yanked him off? There's one in New Zealand, Simon Eber, who will use Facebook and threaten the whole state.
Finland.
Finland. In Finland. And they will still open Facebook for him, Instagram for him. What was the sin of Buhari when they stopped him? And look at what people are doing to us. No matter the kind of good Finland, no matter the kind of good document Mr. President and induction of Mr. President, as long as we don't handle this insecurity, nobody will invade the nation in this manner. Yes, you can commit crime in America, but you cannot kill a sheriff. You cannot kill a soldier and still post it and picture it on Facebook. This one says we must, our security members must and get them this story so we can have a.
Well, thank you very much, Reverend Dominic, for calling in. We lost it, but we got enough. So, Dr. Kabir Adamu, it's a pathetic situation, but maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't be too down in the dumps. But you know what I mean, because with children, one unfortunately does get that way a bit. These are children, and we can't even guarantee their security. Not for not because people don't care. But you did also say that it seemed like you had an issue with the the publicity arm of government. You had a quarrel with them as well, that they weren't doing enough to put out information in there. Quite frankly, we just need all the help we can get because non-state actors are running rings around our institutions, and the institutions themselves are restraining themselves. They can't go out with all the force at their disposal. So nobody should think that Nigeria does not have the capability to do this or that. But these are also Nigerians. That also complicates matters, does it?
No, it does. One of the aspirations, as contained in the Renewed Hope document, is to win the hearts and minds of the people. And I mean, you just by a measure of the colors that you've met, I think we wouldn't be wrong if we describe that most of them are either frustrated or
just exasperated. So what else?
Exactly. And then the other element is the lack of confidence, really. There's a presidential directive. In other climes, where there is a presidential directive, you are rest assured that will be met. But in our own case, people are still skeptical. And so that is where strategic communication needs to come in. How many people?
Well, it's unfortunate that the sound is doing this to us, but I think we're able to follow because of the clarity of your presentation, Dr. Kabir Adamu. In our situation here, people, Ada said it at the very top, and many other contributors have said it, that we've heard this before, and I don't know. Well, the communication arm of government is also listening to this. They'll be able to evaluate what you are saying and maybe look at it from the point of view of, can we do a lot more? Can we do much more in terms of, informing the people? But whether that information will lead to safety, because at the end of the day, we want safety in society generally, but particularly so when they're hitting us at our soft underbelly, schools, universities. These are soft targets that we can't sort of police. So it's a frustrating thing, but I'm going to have to leave it here and trusting Dr. Kabir Adamu that you've shone a light on the situation, especially the difficulty of this situation, and maybe people can be a bit more, I don't know how understanding you can be when your daughter is in danger of being abducted, but at least people need to know what the lie of the ground is. And it seems to me that we're in a dire situation if the commander-in-chief gives an order and sometimes that order goes unexecuted for a number of reasons that you have explained. I'm going to have to leave it here, Dr. Adamu, but thank you very much, Dr. Kabir Adamu, for coming on. Dr. Adamu is Managing Director of Beacon Consulting Limited. It's an enterprise security, risk management, and intelligence firm in Nigeria and the Sahel region. Once more, thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Okay, we're going to have to leave it there this time, but it's a long conversation, so we're definitely going to be addressing it again. I am Yori Folani. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. Bye-bye for now.